The decision to go to South Africa was really posed on, first of all, a deal in the Afrikaans language, but secondly was really my passion for looking at other continents and other countries, and that was a new market. I went to Basel in Switzerland for an educational show, right, just to see what the European market was all about, and I'd gone there. And because I had an Australian passport, I was working off the Australian booth until I was thrown off because they then discovered that I was selling New Zealand product on the Australian booth. So the Australian government were paying for it. So on the third day of the show, they said, "You can't work here." I said, "Why can't? I've got an Australian passport." They said, "No, you're selling New Zealand product. You can't be here because you represent New Zealand." I said, okay, it's fair enough. We are two different countries. But by that time, I'd made contacts anyway. And then we got to get on the train to go from Basel in Switzerland to Milan, and then Milan on to Bologna, to the Bologna Book Fair, where I had a booth, right? That was my first booth to market books, where I met the British, okay? So, and I was meeting another New Zealander, and her and I shared the booth. So, okay, so we're on this train. So we're in a carriage, right, sitting in a carriage, right? And we get on the train, and these other publishers get in the train too. They're all going to the same place. They're going to the Bologna Book Fair because it was sort of like 2 days difference, and then you went on to the Bologna Book Fair. And so they were educational publishers as well. So they're sitting in the train, and we were talking away. Right? And I said, "South Africa, yeah, apartheid, bad news." Because at that time we had riots in the streets in New Zealand, everything apartheid. And they said, "Yes, do you want to see what it's like to be an outcast citizen?" I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Just watch. Because when you travel on a train through Europe, when you go from Switzerland to Italy to things, what happens is the customs people, you don't go through customs or anything else. The customs people get on the train and they come through and look at your passport sooner. They just walk through the carriages and you show your passport. They said, just watch when our passport's shown. Just see what happens." Of course, South Africa in that time was banned from everywhere virtually. It's like being a Russian at the moment. It's like similar to the sort of being a Russian at the moment when you're travelling. So basically, I was okay, I show my Australian passport, no problems. The other people, 2 Brits were across the aisle, no problems. And then of course they didn't. And of course these people go berserk. You've got to have visas and you've got to have this and it was really quite amazing actually how they reacted. I'd never seen a reaction like that because the whole world was against South Africa, as you know. It was a major drive. We got talking about, that's interesting, what do you do for education? I was interested in that. Then I got talking to them. And they said, we're educational publishers. And of course, in those days, I was a one-woman exhibition. I carried all my books with me, just in case of emergency, because there's no way you could send your books or anything. I couldn't afford it anyway. So you carry them in a suitcase. So I pulled the suitcase down from above. It was one of those old-fashioned trains. You pull the suitcase down and thing, and like the Orient Express to a degree. And then you open this, and I said, "Now these are some books. These could be very interesting in Afrikaans." I didn't have a clue, but anyway, I just kept on talking. And they looked at it and they said, "Yeah, they are really interesting, aren't they?" And so we then got talking and things. So by the time we reached Milan, because you change your trains at Milan for Bologna, I had a potential on the rights. They offered me a deal. So that was good. So that was fine. That was my first deal. It was good with Afrikaans. So then they said, "Come to South Africa." So I thought, that's interesting. So I went there. Also a friend who I knew from Reader's Digest, because I've worked with Reader's Digest a bit too. So I know somebody who ran Reader's Digest, and they said, "Come and be our guest." So that was fine. So I got an invitation from them, I got a thing, and I went to South Africa.